presented by Prize Picks. $100 match on your first deposit. Welcome to Light Years. Andy Lou, Free Agency Watch. We are on what? Day 4 here. Things are heating up. The only thing I've learned through free agency is we're going to release this pod and the Warriors are going to do something immediately after because that appears to be the thing. I released one yesterday. They get Kyle Anderson. We do a Kyle Anderson thing. They get Buddy Hield. Buddy Hield, man. Welcome to the Warriors.
No, it was the coaches. They dropped the coaches, so you and I were like, okay.
I had a backwards order.
Yeah, we can wait. It's just Jerry Stackhouse and Terry Stott, and boom, Buddy Hield, dead of night. It's never ending. We're gonna do it now, and then don't break Lauri tonight, which we'll be happy about. It's fine. It's all we're all good with that. We'll go live when that happens. Can't complain.
Yeah, I can't complain either. Buddy Hield gonna use the other part of the TPE to get him. I don't think it's been reported what they're giving up, but the speculation is it's going to be those picks they got for the Klay TPE. Your thoughts on Buddy Hield coming to the Warriors?
Hey, he's just like Klay, man. He shoots just like Klay. He's kind of 6'4"-ish, kind of. No, I don't know if I have much thoughts on him as a player. I'll leave that one to you. My thoughts are I enjoy Mike Dunleavy kind of getting by with what he has, using what he has to get creative. What was the last time the Warriors had a traded player exception, Samuel? When was the last time they had one? Do you remember?
That's a great question. There was the Iguodala Kelly Oubre one.
That's the one. That's the one.
I mean, you could call Chris Paul one.
That's true. I just remember that they didn't use it, right? And I don't, maybe for tax reasons, maybe they didn't want to use it. Maybe there was nothing available. They had to use this one, even though it felt like maybe they wouldn't, but they had to get some players out of it. It kind of is amazing that they got 2 players out of it, and not just like 2 maybe players. These are 2 true rotation players. We talked about Slow-Mo yesterday. Me and you love Slow-Mo. Buddy Hield is, I don't know. He's fine. He's good, man. He's got a ton of shooting. Bring him off the bench. It's awesome. Play him 18 minutes a game. I have no complaints.
He is one of the best shooters in the NBA. Just pure shooting ability on the move from deep, corner, wherever it may be. He can shoot it as well as anyone not named Steph in the NBA. So, kind of a poor decision maker, not a defender. Yeah, that's the reason he's a veteran off the bench and he's not a $30 million player, because I guarantee you if he was able to do more than just shoot it, this guy's a starter on every team in the league. With that said, dude, this team had a major issue with shooting last year. They lost Klay, who,
right,
wherever you think of as a player, can still shoot the fucking ball. They had to reinforce it, and so Buddy's going to be a good depth piece in general for this team. You said 18 minutes. I'm having him pencil at about 20-ish. We got to see what the final roster looks like, but something in that range. He's going to have games where he's on a heater and Steve will play him a little more. He's going to have those games where it's like, okay, he provides spacing, but he went 1 for 7 from 3. It wasn't that great. Either way, it's better than running out lineups with no shooting.
I wonder if this is, so if it's the rest of the TP, it's what, 7 mil or so. So let's just say it's about that amount. So that usually means, 20 minutes or so, right? Like where you're saying, I wonder if this is the place that the Warriors wanted Klay in, just kind of coming off the bench, heat up 6th, 7th man, right? First option off the bench as a scorer. And Klay, I know we'll get to him, was just like, nah, screw that. Like, I'm way better than the Buddy Hield type. And the Warriors just went ahead and got that guy for the player. Because, I mean, candidly, like, those 2 guys, neither of them can really play defense anymore. Klay's still much better than Buddy Hield on defense, but it's not like
he's stronger and he gives more. He cares more. So,
smarter, all that stuff, right? But it's like, I wonder if this is the role that the Warriors were trying to get Klay to play, and Klay to his, maybe he's right. Like, he's just overqualified for that role, and the Warriors just, either way though, Sam, I do think this is a great move because it is 2 true rotation players. It's not can Moses Moody make these shots? Right. Can Moses Moody play 20 minutes? No, we know Buddy Hield can play 20. And you can argue moving forward, you'd much rather have Moses Moody, but not for Steph's timeline. And it seems like they're, at least with these 2 moves, still trying to contend on that timeline. These 2 guys are kind of the best players for that.
Yeah, I think the other interesting part about this is the Warriors have a full roster now. So any move they make would mean someone has to go out. And if you just look at this roster, like I'm just being honest, like there's some upside players, there's a lot of good veterans. It is undersized, blah blah blah. When I look at this, what it says to me is they are primed for a trade. And look, everyone listening to this, we all know about the Lauri Markannen pursuit. That seems to be priority A, B, and C right now. We'll talk about it later. But just looking at it, like it feels like they made moves for guys like Buddy and Slow-Mo with the idea that they're going to bring in a higher level player, and Buddy's going to replace Moses Moody instead of it being is Moody going to take a step this year. It's I know what I'm getting from Buddy. I know what he's doing. I know what he can do, and I know what he can't do. It's a sure thing. Like you're not throwing him out there like being like, let's see if he can guard point of attack. No, he can't. Yeah. It's not changing at 31. Sorry, like that's the thing. And then like same with Slow-Mo, you know exactly what he's going to do. You're not putting him out there to shoot 10 threes. You're putting him out there to make smart decisions and defend.
I think looking at these contracts, you have by the way, from GSW CBA, who's been awesome. People don't follow him, should. He's got the cap table that we've got in front of us. Number 5 is GP2, $9 million. Sam, what is the percent chance that he's on the roster when all is said and done? I think him and Moody are the guys that are gone for sure.
When the Melton signing is essentially, GP, we loved you for what you did 2 years ago, but it's over, So I would be shocked if GP2 opens a season on the roster. He's going to be used as trade filler, just, expiring contract. Yeah, I would assume if they make a move of any significance, some combo of Pods, Moody, or Kuminga is moved. Maybe just one of them, maybe 2 of them, maybe all 3. I would guess it'd be 1 or 2. I don't think all 3. But anyway, my point is, you can see how they could construct a trade while not depleting their depth now. So let's say you trade Moody and Pods, and that one makes me hurt because I really like Pods more than most, apparently, based on my timeline. And GP2 to make the contracts work. Let's say that's the framework right there. Maybe throw in Looney and you getting Zach LaVine or something. Whatever. It doesn't. You get what I'm saying. You know what? You don't have to worry about like who's going to take Moses Moody's minutes. You already got Buddy Hield. Who's going to take GP2's minutes? You already got DeAndre Melton. So you've already done the legwork. Like it's just like they did it backwards. Like I thought they were going to go get the star first. And then like fill out the roster based on who that is. But hey, you don't get a choice for when those deals get done, right?
No. And it's fascinating that he did it this way, but I don't know if it matters which way they did it now, because either way they're gonna have to get a guy. And I know we were talking about this last night. It feels like worst comes to worst, they just go back and nobody's trading for Zach LaVine, man. No one. Not a freaking franchise in hell is going to trade for him. And so it feels like the Warriors are sitting there and going, if we can't get Markanen, if we say no to Ingram and some of this other stuff, where there's always LaVine. I'm not saying that's like they're going to do it for sure. I'm just saying like they put the roster and they built it out this way because they need those players, but maybe they kind of do know, hey, we could just trade for one of these guys. It doesn't take much, right?
You know what this roster says? Optionality. You can pivot in a lot of directions. Look, we're basically only talking about Markanen, Ingram, and LaVine, but you don't know. You don't know if someone else is gonna demand out in the next week. You don't know if there's someone has demanded out and it's just not as public as the Ingram stuff at this point. My point is they're sitting here, in some ways like betting that someone is going to come available, and the fact that they have all these expiring and easy to move options and picks puts them at the front of the line. So it's if it doesn't end up happening, that'll be really disappointing, but that's definitely what they're doing, and I can at least understand the strategy.
Yes, which I think I don't remember the last time the Warriors being this transparent with the strategy that they're doing, which I think is kind of, it's not going all in, because going all in would have been moving that CP3 contract, like staying in the tax, all that stuff, right? We'll see, but they are
But
put
this is
in a pretty good position. They are in a pretty good position right now.
This is a nice pivot because if they did the CP3 trade, and forget who they did it for, there's no
MLE.
TPE
Yep.
and no MLE. So there's no Melton, there's no Kyle Anderson, there's no Buddy Hield.
Yep.
So, it's one way or another. I mean, if it ends up at the same place with a solid roster, then it ends up at the same place with a solid roster. But I'll give him credit. I'll give him credit because day one of free agency, I was like, oh, man, here we go again. And now I'm like, you know what? Cautiously optimistic. I like the direction they're going. And, kudos to them on that front. Hey.
Yeah.
I got a little factoid for you.
Oh, what?
Do you know who is Brandon Ingram's mentor? I'll give you a hint. It's one of the two new assistant coaches the Warriors hired. And I'm gonna let you guess.
It's got to be. You don't think it's Terry Stotts? I don't think his mentor is Terry Stotts. I don't know.
You are correct. It goes back to Carolina roots type thing from down there. So, there's articles written on it. I actually didn't know about it until someone pointed it out, or someone told me, and then I got on Google, did some deep research, and it's like a thing from back when I was in college. So, even though he went to Duke and Stackhouse, North Carolina guy, either way, that tracks out.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they're getting Ingram in any capacity, but will I lie to myself and say that means that Ingram's on the list and they could change Ingram from being a ball stopper? You bet your ass I will.
Ingram and I know Wiggins will probably be gone in that move, but Ingram and Wiggins on the same team, Samuel, I may be bored by the midseason of next year, but that is fascinating. I would imagine that's not why they got Stackhouse, right? It feels like both. I think Terry Stotts
troll comment.
No, I think Terry Stotts people know is great, or at least a very, very. Remember Terry Stotts,
great offensive mind for sure.
The Blazers teams that the Warriors went up against. I gotta be honest, I don't know much about Stackhouse outside of him as a basketball player. He was a really good basketball player, but beyond that, I don't know much about him as a coach. I know he was in the G League for a while. It sounds like he was also mentoring Ingram for a while, way back when. So, can I throw one thought? I know this one's going to be a bit of a tangent, and we'll go back to these head coaches, but it's fascinating to me that Jerry Stackhouse, who seems to be a highly regarded coach that's been making his dues in the college, in the G League ranks, and then Terry Stotts, who's been a very good NBA head coach. I think you know where I'm going. These guys have to sit on the bench next to Steve Kerr on the Warriors before getting another gig at head coach. And meanwhile, you got nepotism down there in Southern California with the Lakers, and JJ Redick somehow gets a head coach when he and I have the same amount of coaching experience. So I think it's funny. I think it's hilarious. I think this is great for the Warriors, obviously. Put more head coaches around Steve, but fascinating.
Yeah. I think they got lucky with Stackhouse because he was with the Raptors G League team. I want to say he got a lot of credit along with our guy Jamma for like Siakam development on that front. And in general, the Raptors have had a solid development pipeline. Van Vliet's another guy I can think of during that time. And he went to the Grizzlies for a year, and then he took a job in college. Obviously, he left Vanderbilt. I don't think it went particularly well there. He might just be a pro coach, I don't think it's a negative thing at all. I just think there's different skill sets that go into college and pro coaching. So much of college coaching is like recruitment more so than actual X's and O's. So I think they got lucky because he's probably looking to get back into the NBA. Being a lead assistant on the Warriors, it gets snapped up as a head coach within 2 to 3 years if the Warriors do some good things,
Yeah. That's an interesting one. The Jamma, you brought up Jamma's name because that one, did that ever work out with the Warriors? Did it feel like it worked out? Because he was pretty highly regarded.
Wiggins, man. He was Wiggins' guy. He was Wiggins' shooting coach. He's the guy who got Wiggins to go from 33% to 40% from three.
He never got a head coaching job out of it, I guess. That's my point.
Yeah, but that's a fair point.
Maybe he didn't want one.
Maybe he will eventually. But what the other thing I like on this, and I don't want to go too deep on this because it's honestly not my forte that much. But
forte, not mine.
Well, I do like that new voices. I think they needed to refresh the roster, but I think the coaching was equally as stale. So if Terry Stotts, Jerry Stackhouse are going to bring some new perspective and kind of tweak some stuff. I appreciate Steve Kerr always looking to bring in new guys every couple of years to keep things fresh on that front. And I also appreciate the fact he's not insecure. Do you remember Adrian Griffin with the Bucks and how he was super threatened by Stotts on the bench?
Yeah. He left before the season even started. He left.
You don't have to worry about that with Steve.
The offense has gotten stale through the years. So I think Stotts is going to help.
Some of that's personnel.
Correct. Though I'm not sure slow-mo changes that. No, and Hield help. And then defensively, I don't know what Stackhouse's thing is, right? But defensively, they really struggled. And you can argue whether that's just they just had really bad perimeter defenders. They didn't have enough bigs depth-wise, right? Where Draymond's shouldering too much of the load. But a lot of it felt schematic too, because we talk about it every game, and we will next season. It's like, why leave open three-point shooters in the corners all game long, right? So I feel like maybe both these guys, they come in with new schemes. I like they're not new coaches, man. They've been around the block. It's good for the Warriors to have something different versus what we've seen so far. They lost quite a bit. We'll talk about Klay right after kind of the next one, but they've lost quite a bit in the front office and the coaching staff. So these two guys look like they'd help at least. All right. Before, by the way, are you there? Lagging a little bit. Okay, cool. Before we get to the next segment, Let Yours podcast, we are brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100x your own money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. With the finals over, the hoops action doesn't stop on PrizePicks. Women's basketball is still heating up. With stars like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, you could win up to 100 times your cash watching them ball out. I made my first $10 deposit, received an instant $10 bonus. If you have the skill, you can play for a shot, turning your $10 into $1,000. And with the 4th of July hot dog eating contest coming up, PrizePicks will be providing a square for Jeffrey Esper to eat 1 hot dog. If he eats 1, you win. Download the PrizePick app today. Use code LightYears for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LightYears on PrizePicks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. And we're brought to you by Raycon. You may have heard me talk about Raycon's everyday earbuds before, but now is the time to check them out because they just launched their upgraded model of the best-selling everyday earbuds. Available in a variety of vibrant new colors to complement any and all skin tones. I got myself a purple one last week. So with the new quick charge function, 10 minutes of charging yields 90 minutes of battery. Ergonomic design to comfortably fit the widest range of ears, plus optimized gel tips for a cozy custom fit. Raycons are weatherproof and sweat resistant, so I'll be using them in my workouts every day without worrying about them falling apart. Raycon also offers a 30-day happiness guarantee, so what are you waiting for? Go to buyraycon.com/lightyears today to get 15% off your Raycon order, plus free shipping. That's right, you'll get 15% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/lightyears. buyraycon.com/lightyears.
I'm back.
Woo!
Appreciate. Yeah, well, I was I gotta get a new computer. That's what's.
I thought you didn't want to. I thought you didn't want to do the Klay segment. I thought that's where we're going.
No. By the way, dude, I made the mistake of discussing Klay a little bit on Twitter. Bad idea. Just because you know how I feel about Klay. I'm sad to see him go. I also understand it. I don't really like the way it exited, but like he's still he's always gonna be a legend in my eye. I don't think any of that is particularly like controversial or mean, but you throw stuff out on social media and people make some assumption like I'm, shitting on him, or the opposite, that I'm like overrating him. And it's just like, dude, my mistake for thinking could talk about any of this on social media.
A take is relatively balanced if people think you're arguing one way or the other. I think is a good way to do it. People are passionate about, or I mean, not people are angry, I think, about Klay. So
yeah. So there was
there's
a
a lot
new
of
article
stories
today.
too, right? There's a lot of stories
Yeah.
going both ways. So yeah.
It's been so. I mean, I'm not surprised that it's been kind of like a slow roll of stories. Yesterday, our guy Anthony Slater put out one, which clearly had like the Warriors' perspective. Today, Ramona Shelbourne put one out and provided a little more color. I did not know Joe Lacob went golfing with Klay Thompson. I guess first off, I would say read it if you want, if you're a Warrior fan. I think it's a good story. I came away from all of this just like, look, none of this is going to change how I feel about Klay long term, and it provides context that kind of matches what I was thinking anyway. But what was your take when reading all this?
I was pretty annoyed that you brought this up in our conversation. Is that I think I read all of this, not just Ramona's article today, but all the other ones, Slater's, all of them. And in my head, I'm just like, I'm gonna land the plane. I swear to you. I don't know if you watch House of the Dragon, but in the last episode, they had the two women who wanted to be the queen of the whole land. I'm gonna explain this poorly, but they finally had a chance to talk together, right? They wanted to talk it out, and really, it did not go well, right? What they really needed is they needed someone to at least mediate, right? To at least get in between them to understand, like, hey, this is what the person's wrong about. This is what the person's mad about, so that both regions don't go to war, which of course they're all going to go to war. That's the point of the dragon. That's the point of the House of the Dragon, right? And it feels like that with Klay and the Lakeups, because it feels like that's the issue. It's Klay, the Lakeups. I don't think it's Steph. It's not Draymond. It's not Jordan Poole. It's Klay. It's Joe Lacob. And it feels like the missing piece here, as I'm reading all this, is there's no Bob Myers. Like, there's no someone that's just sitting between them and saying, hey, Klay, Joe's an asshole, but this is just how he negotiates. This is how he does business. Don't take it personal. You'll get your money, right? Someone who's in Klay's ear. And then there's someone in Joe's ear where it's like, hey, Joe, Klay's not Draymond. Klay's not Steph. He's not going to deal with the bullshit that he's going to leave. He's actually going to leave. So you can't treat him the same way you treated Draymond. Draymond can learn the other way. He knows the game. Klay doesn't play that game, right? Somebody needs to be in Joe's ear the way that somebody needed to be in Klay's ear. And there was nobody, right? Whoever was surrounding Klay had no idea what they were doing. Whoever was surrounding Joe Lacob and those guys, no idea what they were doing. And this is what happens. And I think we can all argue, like we did the earlier segment, maybe the Warriors end up being a better team. Maybe Hield, maybe those guys, maybe they get Lauri, Colin, all those guys. Maybe they could put together a better team when Klay's gone. But I think the fact that Klay's gone is because they're missing someone like Bob Myers.
I like that. I think I agree with you. I think Bob was missed because, look, the core guys trusted Bob. He's definitely the guy who could get them to go into it. I still keep coming back to this one specific passage, though, and I just want to share it real quick.
Yep.
He was miserable, as one person close to him said, miserable with how negotiations with the team had gone, miserable that he thought he wasn't respected or valued by the franchise the way that Steph and Draymond were, miserable about his declining role, and yes, miserable at the way his game declined as well. I think you're right. I think Bob Myers was sorely missed as a voice for all of this, because Bob is probably the guy who has the best shot at getting Klay to accept reality that it's not 2019 anymore. That's probably part of it. But I also think part of it, and I keep coming back to this, is I just don't know that he could do it on the Warriors. I don't know that he has it in him to go into the Chase Center with his face next to Steph and Draymond on the wall, 4 rings, and he's the one who's no longer that guy while those other 2 guys are chugging along. It's a constant reminder every day of the injuries. Like, part of me wonders I'm not the person to talk about this, but part of me wonders, like, has he accepted what happened to him with the injuries? Like, does he need to talk to someone from a therapist? Like all that stuff is, it feels like the number one issue here is he's having a hard time accepting the fact that he's the one who's at the tail end of their career while the other two guys are in their prime. And I just don't know that anyone can fix that.
And I don't think he's going to get fixed in Dallas, man. There's going to be, because here's the thing. I think he can start. I think he could have started with the Warriors. It's the fact that there are going to be times that he isn't going to be good enough to close, which you and I sat there. We disagreed a lot last season, but there were points that we agreed, hey, he shouldn't be closing, and he didn't. For what it's worth with Steph and Draymond, they would always be good enough to close. And I think that you're right. I think that's what it is, because yeah, he could start on the Warriors next season. He could start. You could argue, but that might still be the best path forward. But there would be weeks where he shouldn't and wouldn't be closing. And I think, yeah, you're right. That's the stuff that I think there was just going to be no going back. And yeah, maybe Bob doesn't fix that. Who fixed it? I mean, it's Klay. It's the only person that can fix that. Maybe he's just maybe he's just gonna be, maybe he sits on the bench in Dallas, maybe he'll be benched a little bit, or maybe he doesn't play as one. That's just not as, maybe he's just not as miserable. Maybe he's just like, at least I can deal with that hair in Dallas. I could never do it in Golden State. And who could have fixed that?
Because he knows he's not.
Yeah.
Because he knows he's not a founding father in Dallas. He's just another guy in Dallas. You know,
just like all those
he's
guys,
not,
right?
Yeah, but he's not Dirk Nowitzki. He's not Luka. You know, he's not. And maybe that's what he needs to accept the different part of his career. Right. I don't know. I would have liked him to return and to be able to accept this and come off the bench with the Warriors. I also look, man, he's human. And I understand these things are difficult. So if he can't do it, he can't do it. You know, that seems to be the tone that Draymond and Steph took too, where they're just like, man, it's you're asking him to do something he's not capable of. So
Draymond's podcast did make it feel that way. And it made me think that they're not, I mean, they're sad about it, but it does make it feel like they're actually deep down kind of happy for Klay. Like it kind of feels like they're saying, no, could be wrong, but it feels like they're kind of sitting there like, you read Steph's message. He's like, hey, go out there and go enjoy basketball. Like, go play basketball, go enjoy it. I think they're sitting there going like, hey, man, like if this is just not going to be happy for you and there's nothing we can do about it, and it's not about the $50 million that you're going to get, go somewhere else and just be happy. They care more about that, right? Which I think is the best sign of brotherhood between Steph, Draymond, and Klay, is that they're like, we would love for you to still play with us, but if it's really that fucking miserable, go somewhere else and we will be happy for you. I don't know. I actually think that's kind of cool, but maybe it's hopium. Maybe it's copium, not hopium. Maybe it's copium. This would be copium.
I do agree with you. That's kind of where I'm landing on it. You know, it's always ugly. Let's be honest. It's ugly at the end to hear about him like not wanting to negotiate with the team. It's ugly to hear about the way it went down with it. Like it's not the way anyone saw this thing going, you know, but things happen. Okay.
He'll be back.
I say we move
to a Jersey Raptor. Yeah. Now let's do hopium. Yeah.
We are on day 4 of Lauri Markannen Watch on the Light Years podcast.
It's like you're recording a thing during Apocalypse Day 36. Still no signs of human life. Still no signs of a trade for a number 2 player.
Yeah, I mean, here's my take, because everyone listening to this has heard about the Lauri Markannen rumors. I don't need to give you too much background. At this point, every media organization has reported it, local and national. The reporting has been the Warriors are highly aggressive for him. And the other team that's been mentioned here more than anyone has been the Spurs. And it does feel like it might be a showdown between those two teams to get him. I don't know. That's kind of where my head's at. I don't. Do you think there's a third team in this mix? I would have said OKC, but they made the big Hartenstein splash. So it seems like they're going in a different direction. I don't really know who else is even in the mix.
I don't think it's, now that I think about it. Remember when we did our free agency show, I was all in on OKC doing it, but now it feels like, you know how OKC is, like they're cheap. So they're going to pay their own guys. They're going to pay Chet. They're going to pay Jalen Williams, and they've already paid Hartenstein to put the big near Chet. Now I'm kind of like, are they going to get another stretch big? It doesn't feel that way, right? So I'll cross them off, like you said. The Kings don't seem like that they have enough. Sam Amick reported, and he's a very trustworthy source, that the Kings are out. So that's another guy you can cross off. And now you're kind of sitting here and you're saying, okay, what other teams are out there that, one, want to go all in with someone like Lauri and can afford to pay him, and 2, actually have the ammunition to do that. Right. And it feels like the Warriors obviously are probably the most desperate team. And you said the Spurs. To me, it feels like the Warriors are way more desperate than the Spurs, but it looks like the Spurs have the better assets if they choose to use them. Is that objectable fact, or is that subjective?
I think it depends on which assets you think are more valuable. So the Warriors have Kuminga and Pods as young players. Neither of them are Wemby, but they'll like them. But yeah, so and then draft pick wise, the Warriors can only offer 3 picks, really, couple, and the most attractive will be that 2031 when Steph will be retired, and you're kind of betting the Warriors suck then, and they're going to give you a number 5 pick, right? Something like that, right? Now let's look at the Spurs here. Spurs, the problem with the Spurs is Wemby's only going to get better. He's not getting worse. So those Spurs picks, maybe next year's pick isn't super high, but like they're probably going to be in the 20s for the duration of the next
He's
decade.
He's going to legit be the best player in the NBA in 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
So Spurs are pretty worthless in itself.
But here's what they do have.
Okay.
2025, Atlanta Hawks, unprotected.
Oof.
2026, swap rights with Hawks. So you have a better record than the Hawks. So you can be like, you know what? Take my 21. I'm taking your number 6. And then 2027, Atlanta Hawks, unprotected.
Jeez,
this was all because of the DeJounte Murray trade. Ironic that they just traded him.
Disgusting.
So I mean, what's more valuable to you? One of those Hawks picks, or that 2031 Steph is 43 on a golf course somewhere, on the other side of the earth, Warriors pick?
I may bet against the Warriors, which maybe I'll take that one. But how about this? How about this another point for you though? If I were the Spurs, why would I throw those picks in the trade offer? Why would I? I'm sitting there and I'm going, yeah, well, I got Wemby. I got a big window. Why Lowry's not a superstar? Why wouldn't I just wait for Giannis? Why wouldn't I just wait for like
or the Hawks just give me Cooper Flag next year?
or that. Shit, I hadn't even thought of that. There you go. I mean, the Hawks are tanking, aren't they? They're going to trade Trey here in a second, right? So why wouldn't I just wait for that instead of because here's the thing, you're going to have to pay Lauri. You're going to have to extend and max out Lauri. I'm sure the Warriors are willing to do it, but that's not exactly the same timeline as the Spurs. Like if you're the Spurs, you're kind of sitting there. Yeah, can you imagine Cooper Flag and Wemby? Jeez, that's pretty sweet, right? For the next 10 years, that's a Twin Towers again, like Duncan and Dave Robinson. So I kind of find it hard to believe that the Spurs would throw the Atlanta picks in there.
But if they did,
yeah,
can the Warriors beat that? I think that's tough.
Yeah,
I think. Okay, let me put it this way. I feel very confident that someone like Danny Ainge just wants a war chest of good picks. Yeah, I mean, I don't know this to be true. As a source, my assumption is
sources.
He wants the Hawks picks, and if the Spurs aren't willing to put him in there, the Warriors may end up getting Markanen.
Yeah.
But if they put the Hawks picks on the table, I don't really see how the Warriors top that, because they could. I mean, just resharing this. The Spurs could, in theory, and I'm not saying they will, I'm just saying they have the chips too. They could, in theory, throw 3 of their own picks, 2 Hawks picks, and they own some other. They could throw 6 picks, 2 of them being Hawks picks, 1 of them being this like random Thunder pick they own. They can do 6, 7 picks if they wanted to. I'm not saying they should or they will, but they could. And the Warriors just simply don't have that. They don't have 8 to 10 to 12 draft picks of other teams' picks that are good. They only have their own stuff, and even not all of it.
It feels like it's going to come down to what the Spurs are how they actually want to mortgage the future versus the present? Like, is it worth it for them to get someone like Lauri right now who, like, as good as he is, like, does he actually make Wemby better? I mean, maybe you space the floor out a little bit for him. He has more space down low, probably,
Very
right? Yeah.
impossible to guard.
But maybe do you want to use that war chest to get a lead ball handler instead, right? We know we love Chris Paul around here, but maybe they're kind of waiting for someone that's a 1-2 with Wemby versus now you've still got kind of 2 play finishers versus 1 play creator and 1 play. Anyway, I'm doing a little bit of hopium here, kind of trying to think. Yeah.
I think you're right, because the Warriors, if they don't get Lauri Markanen, I don't know where they go. I don't know what's next out there. Yep. Whereas if the Spurs don't, Wemby can't even drink legally in the U.S. Like, it's like they're not in the same rush the Warriors are. They might just look at this and be like, you know what? Let's see what we can get at that draft pick for the Hawks, or let's see if someone younger comes available. What if I'm trying to think of someone honestly, like, what if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander comes available in 2 years?
Anthony Edwards. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, I mean, my point is they're not dealing with a 36-year-old franchise legend's small window. They're dealing with, they got 15 years. I guess they can't think of it because he has to re-sign, but they have at least 7 years before he could leave in free agency.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they got a little.
If I were them, I would throw all these picks that they have at Anthony Edwards, who asks out in a couple years, right? Where Ant's like, okay, franchise a mess. You sold it. We don't have any money. Gobert's kind of at the tail end of his career. Cat's kind of a mess. Like, what happens now, right? You know how these things go in the NBA. We've seen it.
Yeah.
And then the Spurs are there and saying that we got the best player in the world. Come. I'll give Minnesota freaking 15 picks.
That'd be terrifying. That'd be terrifying. But I see your logic.
Warriors will be done by then. We don't have to worry about that.
I see your logic there, and I have one last thought on this. You know how everyone's saying the Warriors are super aggressive on Lauri? That tells me the Utah Jazz want someone else, and I'm guessing it's the Spurs, to know that they might make a deal with the Warriors if the Spurs don't up the offer. So maybe they will, maybe they won't, but there's always a purpose for these leaks. Yeah. Nobody puts anything out there if they don't have an agenda on the trade front. That much I know, more than anything.
Do you have a guess on what a mystery third team could be?
I was actually trying to think about that when you were walking through it. It's kind of tough because, to your point, it has to be someone who is trying to compete now. You're not trading for Lauri Markanen to pay him a boatload of money to not compete. So just looking through it, Celtics no, Knicks no, Bucks no, Cavs probably not. Orlando, sneaky, or I could see Orlando getting in the mix. He makes a lot of sense with their no shooting lineups.
Yep. And they're young.
Okay, see, I'm saying no. Denver doesn't have the juice. Minnesota's all in with their team. Clippers don't have the juice. Dallas doesn't have the juice. Phoenix doesn't have the juice. Pelicans, maybe? Pelicans have a lot of picks. He makes a lot of sense next to Zion. So maybe the Pelicans would be my guess there, but they just got DeJounte.
Yeah.
So
it's the Magic, the Cavs, and maybe the Pelicans.
I know Philly likes him, but they don't have enough. They just don't have enough stuff to, like, I'm sure Philly wants him, but they can't outbid the Warriors for him, is my point.
If the Warriors are as desperate as they seem, and I tweeted this, and maybe this is the final thing, and this is gonna break out in the next 4 hours. But yeah, I think my take is if the Warriors are as desperate as they seem, they should be able to land this. Unless the Spurs go haywire, which we just talked through it for 10 minutes. I don't know why the Spurs would go haywire. So it feels like the Warriors are the team that should be able to make this trade happen, unless Ainge is just saying, okay, we're just going to extend him, right? Like there's that possibility, which again doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense if you're Utah. It's 0 sense. But
I feel like Spurs
should be able to get this done.
I feel like Spurs and Thunder, if either of them get Markanen over the Warriors, I'll be disappointed, but I won't like blame management. Because I'm like, you just Sorry, you don't have as much as them because you didn't tank to get everyone's picks. If someone else gets them, it'd be a different story. But yeah, I don't know. This is the Hopium reel. Lauri Watch. We will continue. We will be doing Lauri Watch every day until he's a Warrior.